All right, so that first clip, what I was showing you was with that stock setup with the hood hinge and the strut that's sent together as a kit. It is too weak and not long enough, so it doesn't support the hood and it just kind of falls down on its own weight. So what I ended up having to do is I switched out the struts that come with this kit with longer struts and stronger struts. All right, so now that that's fixed, before I move on, I actually want to point out one thing. The reason why I went to a longer strut is because the hood would not open up all the way. So it needed to be stronger and longer. Let's take a look at these. The hood hinges, when they come, the barrel nuts inside of these are too short. So you could actually clamp these down too much and it won't hinge like it's supposed to. What I guess you're supposed to do, from what I've been told, is to use Loctite, and you just depend on the Loctite instead of the thread engagement to hold it together, so you're unable to actually torque these bolts down. I don't like that. It may not back out. It just seems like a weak, like Band-Aid, I guess. So what I ended up doing was machining these down to make them the perfect length, so it has a little bit of tension on these Teflon washers. I believe they're Teflon, either nylon or Teflon. So that way you could torque it down to whatever foot-pounds that bolt is rated for, and it'll still hinge properly, as you can see. Okay, so now that I have that clarified of what I did and why I did it, I'm going to show you how I did it. All right, so now that the hood opens and closes the way that it's supposed to, we have different shocks on there that are longer and stronger. So now that that's situated, we can go to the actual hinges themselves. And the problem with these is when you go to tighten them, it wants to crush these little nylon washers, and you can't over torque them. If you over torque them, it crushes it too much and then it won't hinge properly. So there's a little bit of a design flaw in this, and maybe I'm just overlooking this. The way that I'm thinking about it is there's a little barrel nut inside here, and the barrel nut stops short right into this bracket, and then when you put pressure on both sides of the male and female bolt and nut, it'll just crush the washer instead of putting the force on the female nut with tension on this. So that way you'd be able to torque it down and get a torque value between both of these nuts as they crush together versus up against the washer. Pretty much you can tighten this by hand right now and it will not hinge properly. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some barrel nuts. These are 5mm longer, and we're going to machine them down shorter, so that way it runs into the head of the male bolt and crushes and puts all the pressure here, enough to where it'll also put pressure on the sleeves themselves too, the nylon washers I mean, and it'll still allow it to hinge, and we should be able to get to a 16 foot-pound torque rating. That's close to what an M8 calls out for, which is what the size of these bolts are in here. So we are going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll machine 7 of these down to fit in here, and then we'll test. What we're going to do is I'm going to assemble this, and I'm going to torque every single one of them at 16 foot-pounds. We'll test and make sure that it will hinge properly, and then we'll do the same to the other hinge that I've yet to modify, and we'll see the difference. Alright, so here on the left is unmodified, so it barely sticks through. I mean, it's slightly under. The one that I modified, which is 5mm longer and then cut back, that is sticking out, but it's not past the nylon washer. So what's going to happen is when this gets torqued down, it's going to crush down onto that washer until it hits that barrel nut, and then it will start to apply our torque, which we should be able to get to that 16 foot-pound. And with that torque being added, without even using any Loctite or anything, we should be able to get a torque value to the size of that bolt, and then it should not loosen up as we go to hinge it. Alright, so I got all my pieces machined down to size. Now I'm going to assemble it. We'll do it one by one, so that way I don't lose all the pieces and forget how it's assembled. Alright, so we'll start with this one. So I went ahead and torqued every single one of these, make sure that they're all locked down, good to go. It still hinges. Just to show you, I'll do a couple of these real quick. So this is the modified hinge. So those are all nice and tight. Still hinges good. Alright, we're going to take the unmodified one. This is loose. I can show you right now, all these are loose. And it's a little bit tighter right now, I think, than to hinge the modified one. So we're going to go ahead and tighten this up. Start here. Same torque value, and I can't even compress this. It's really, really hard to open and close. Ugh. Push that all the way down. So there you have it. It's almost like butter with the modified bolts. And same torque value. I have to put a lot of pressure on this to get it to open and close. So in my opinion, this was, I don't know, close to $500-600. This should come engineered, ready to be able to torque these at full torque spec, and it should hinge properly at that torque spec. You should not have to rely on Loctite keeping bolts that are loose together. Here's just a couple more things I wanted to point out before I end this video. So on the front here for your fender extension, you have to use a low profile bolt. If you don't, as you can see, it runs into it. So if I press this down, it is very close. So if you use like the stock hardware, it's not going to work. So this is the modified one. So if you guys end up buying this and you have to modify it just like I did, make sure there's no play where it gets bolted up to each arm. It should be nice and tight, just like this. So I think I probably could have went with a little bit longer of a strut, but I think this is plenty enough room for me to be able to do whatever I want to do. If for some reason I think it needs to go higher down the road, I could always just add a longer one on. The hinges are not maxed out, they'll actually go up some more, but I think for now this is good. One last thing I wanted to talk about, and this just may be unique to this fiberglass hood, but I actually had to pivot that hinge to a position to where I had to cut these off, and this is where your front grille mounts to. It may be different with the factory steel hood, but for my specific setup, the revision that was added right here did not accept the location to where this hood needed to be at. So also something else to think about.